Okay, she's recording.
Oh, heck yeah.
Woo! Max, did you research something or are you going to listen?
No, I'm gonna we're gonna see how this works for me.
Okay.
I'm thinking in my mind, it might be funny. It might be really stupid because it might be really lazy. I mean, it is lazy.
Okay.
It might be really stupid. But in my mind, I'm like, wouldn't it be funny to have someone who not only doesn't know about the paintings,
Mm-hmm.
but like is being explained the paintings without ever seeing them?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I could be a bit of comic relief in that aspect, because I
Yeah.
could, because in that way I play the viewer. But it might not go well. But in my mind, that seems like an interesting concept. But also, it's a very cop out. We could try it.
I think it's fun. I think it also could be funny because, like, I mean, the three of us went to high school together,
Yeah.
but Max took Gov and we did not.
Right.
So I think I like the idea of us just like teaching Max art history for no reason.
Like, I also think like I saw you did notes, but I don't even want to look at the painting. Like I want to.
Yeah, no, that's what we did last time. They were a surprise.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, let me share mine with you guys, and then we'll look last. No, not Seclair at Flint Ridge. Bedoin. Okay, and then
Bedoin. We could also use my Gmail, I've realized, but Bedoin is good.
You told me to do Bedoin, so you're Bedoin forever.
Okay.
Okay. Do you want to go first again, Sinclair, or do you want me to go first?
Sure. Why the heck not? Let me find it.
Oh, wait, we should also
start
say...
the voice memo?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, we have a title now. If you're good with it, Sinclair, I'm happy with it. We've mostly decided on paint on canvas on tape, which I enjoy, and it also spells pocket. And now there's three of us too, so we each get a word, I guess.
I call it canvas.
Who are you?
I'm tape. No, I think Sinclair's tape.
Can we do an intro?
What's our intro though?
We just say hi. I don't know. Hi everyone.
Oh yeah, I guess we should
Welcome to the
introduce
show.
ourselves. Okay, yeah. This is our intro now. Hello.
Welcome to the show, everyone.
Hello, folks.
Yes. I'm Kendall.
Yeah. I'm Max. I'm Max and I'm Canvas.
Yeah. I'm Kendall and I'm Paint. If I can steal Paint, I feel like Paint's the best one, low-key, but...
Low-key, you won. I'm Sinclair and I'll be the tape today. We'll see what I am tomorrow.
Well, actually, maybe I should be tape because I'm the one who's completely blind, you know?
How does...
Because I haven't seen the paintings, like...
What does tape have to do with being blind, though?
Because the tape is like the podcast aspect of it.
Oh.
You know, the paint and canvas, those are the visual mediums that you guys are looking into. I'm the one who doesn't know anything.
Okay, but then you could also be the canvas that we're painting on.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
So maybe we shouldn't choose words. Maybe that's what we've learned from it.
Yeah. I want to be on.
Yeah, you want to be on. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Okay. And Sinclair's gonna present a painting.
Heck yeah. I want to talk about Artemisia Gentileschi because I think she's cool. And I almost took a class about her and then I didn't have time and I'm sad. So I thought I would talk about Artemisia Gentileschi today. And she's a nice Italian broad from the Baroque period. She was born right before 1600, not right before, in 1593, we'll be exact today. And she's pretty cool because she broadly was like a female successful painter when women were not successful painters. And that's kind of cool. Not super cool how it happened to her.
Wait, is she the one with the two guys that like say that the woman was I'm doing a terrible job of explaining this. There's the one painting, it's like not Judas and Holofernes, but it's another
That
one with
is her, and that's what I'm.
Oh, it is her. Okay, then my brain knew it, but I didn't.
Yeah.
So
Go Kendall's brain.
Woo. Okay, keep going.
Yeah. So she's pretty cool, but it's not super cool. The reason why she's famous because she was raped when she was 18, and then her like rape trial got her a lot of publicity. So she sort of became this like local celebrity through this like terrible thing, and she was like actually like publicly tortured during the trial to like confirm her testimony. It was very terrible, but she sort of spun her renown into an art career, following the footsteps of her father, who was also an artist.
I mean, at least she got something out of it.
I know, but also it sucks.
Yeah.
And like a lot of her art could be understood as being like directly inspired by those like feelings. And we'll talk about that in a bit. But she was trained as an artist before that by her father, who was an artist who really like was big into Caravaggio, who's also a cool dude.
Ooh.
Caravaggio's work is all about light and darkness and chiaroscuro. Kendall's my favorite word, which means like the combo of light and dark and shading. And
but you gotta say chiaroscuro.
Chiaroscuro. The most fun. And so she was producing professional work when she was 15, which is pretty cool. And she was like commissioned to do things, paint cool things around Italy. The Medicis were in power, and so she was like doing things for them and other folk and getting paid to do it, which is pretty cool.
Damn, and the Medicis are like all that.
Oh yeah, all that in Italy. So they're out in Florence, commissioning art as they do. And in general, a lot of her work is like focuses on strong women. She paints a lot of biblical scenes, a lot of violence. Often, like if she'll paint something from a biblical story, it won't be like the scene that most people would paint. It will be like the violent climax of the story. And a lot of those depict like really strong women, sort of often in positions of taking revenge, which we could connect to her personal life, and a lot of people do. Following in Caravaggio's tradition, she's known for her naturalism and realism, so sort of showing muscle, showing human bodies in correct proportion, like proportional to life, and also her like light and dark, chiaroscuro. And you can definitely see like influences from Caravaggio in a lot of her work. Even in the work I'm going to talk about, she's like directly copying the composition of a Caravaggio piece of the same story, but she makes like improvements. So the piece of hers that I want to talk about is Judith slaying or Judith beheading, depending on who you look at, Holofernes, which is a confusing name, but this is a biblical story of a woman whose city was besieged, and then she basically like kind of seduces, kind of uses her feminine wiles to get into the like camp of the general of the army who had besieged her city. And she gets him really drunk, basically like seduces him. And then when he falls asleep because he's so drunk, she kills him, cuts off his head, to take her revenge and take matters into her own hands. And she's sort of seen in the Judeo-Christian traditions as like a symbol of her faith and like her people, and looked at as sort of like a pure sort of virtuous woman, which is kind of interesting to think about.
Because she just seduced someone.
And then killed him. So good for her.
What virtue.
And so this is actually a story and like an image that Artemisia Gentileschi painted, I think like 6 times. I was only able to find 2 of them, but the one I want to look at is the later one, which is from 1620, maybe 1621. So after she was raped. I think they're all after she was raped. One of them is like the first one is I think 1611 and is right around when she was raped. So we can sort of see that through line. But this one is in Italy currently. They're all sort of recognized by the gallery they're in now. And it depicts, so we have sort of a bed pretty close to the viewer. And Holofernes is like lying on the bed with his head closest to us. And he's got this like very lush velvet, like red blanket sort of draped over him. So we don't have any nudity here. But he seems to not be wearing any clothes. And then up and to the right of him, we have two women. One of them in the front is holding a sword and is like stabbing it into his neck in a pretty like violent, effortful way. And she's using her other hand to like push against his head to hold him down. And you can like see her straining in her arm. And then there's another woman sort of behind her who seems to be like helping to hold him down. And he's like pushing against her. So we have like, there's a lot of muscular tension. And they're all sort of lit in like a oil lamp kind of glow, like they're very yellowish and they sort of fade into the dark background. And the background from like the whole top and the side and goes to the bottom is black. Like it is dark, dark, dark black. And we can see his blood sort of like spurting out of his neck upwards. And you can actually see it like on her clothes, which is interesting because that's an addition after her first work, her first like depiction of this scene. And there's blood also like on the sheets in the like immediate foreground. So this is like, you're not going to see this and not know what's going on. It is very apparent what's happening here.
Can I interrupt for a second?
Yeah, of course.
It's interesting because you were saying like it's very violent the way she's stabbing him, and my first thought was like, well, is there a not violent way to stab someone? But then I was like thinking about it, and I remember vaguely like when we looked at the other versions of this story in paintings, and it's not actually that violent, if I remember right. Like her version is actually a lot more like bloody and stuff.
Yeah,
kind of weird.
Yeah, both like the like gore component and also the like depiction of the effort it would have taken to make this happen. Like it looks very active and very like you can sort of see the muscles in her arm, and you can see like her wrist bending back because she's working so hard to like hold him down, which is not something that comes through in like Caravaggio's version of this, for example. Like she looks pure, she's just sort of like there, not doing much. And it's like a big difference in that regard. I think that makes it a lot more realistic looking and like vivid. Yeah. So I was also going to sort of tie in the comparison contrast to her Caravaggio inspiration, which is a painting earlier done by him that has like the exact same composition. Like it's still Holofernes and these two women. But Judith is like, she looks a lot younger. She looks a lot more innocent and pure, and like it's not taking that much effort, even though she is still like actively holding a sword through this guy's neck and there still is like blood happening. She's like
passively beheading him.
But she's lit with this like very pure white light and is wearing like this like white light blue blouse, and it just looks like so innocent and much more honestly like a Virgin Mary than like a woman who is actively murdering a person. She looks like the girl from Bridgerton to me in the Caravaggio one, as opposed to this woman who is like
the like lead girl
doing things. What?
The lead girl in Bridgerton? Okay.
She's got that hair.
Max, you can also interrupt and talk.
I have a lot of questions.
Yeah, tell me your questions.
Okay, my first question is, what's the deal with the velvet? Why velvet? That seems like a very
I read some things because this is also something that she like changed from her first version of this painting with the same composition. And I read some things that were kind of like, you can see like her developing her art skills, like just her like art technical skills over the course of her career. And like maybe she wanted to like show that off, that she could
well, but it's also in Caravaggio's though, right? So why
there is some fabric going on here. I think that hers is like more technically skilled.
I do like hers better.
Yeah.
Wait, you weren't supposed to look at them yet.
I decided to look at it because I didn't have any questions.
Oh, okay. All right.
And now I'm getting more involved.
Okay, that's good. We like that.
Which might not be good for the viewer, but that's.
Do you agree with me that she looks like the girl in Bridgerton?
I haven't seen Bridgerton, but probably. My second question is, in Caravaggio's, this other woman's really old, and in hers, she's pretty young. So.
Something to consider. I don't really have an explanation for that, but it is interesting.
I feel like Gentileschi, that's her name, right? Gentileschi. Okay. I feel like hers is also probably more realistic in that way, I'm betting. Because like you have not only like it's actually bloody and like there's a fuck ton of like strength and blood required to behead someone. And like I'm assuming I do listen to a lot of true crime podcasts. I feel like it's not that easy to like do that kind of thing by yourself, especially if it's like an elderly woman and a young woman. Like
it's also interesting because in the old woman, it's just like hanging out, and the second one,
I don't know what she's doing.
And hers, she's like she's helping, which is like that's fair, you know. She probably needs some help, but I don't know. Also,
I like his face in the Caravaggio one.
Yeah. I was gonna say also like it looks. This is such a stupid. Never mind. I was just gonna say, in hers, like the sword is a cross. Whatever. Who cares? It's a cross. You can see it's a cross.
Okay.
Yeah. There we go, Max. I was just
Max does art history.
Yeah, it's a cross.
Yeah. I actually do have a thought about the two women because I don't know, something I read was talking about how when Gentileschi was raped, there was like another woman. So what happened was there was like another woman who was like subletting part of their house. Like she was like their upstairs neighbor who like lived with them. And she was like the reason why these other men were like coming to their house who were like artists that Gentileschi was working with when she was like a teenager. And Gentileschi had like called for help and this other woman hadn't helped her. And so there was sort of this like feeling of like being betrayed by this other woman and wanting to have like been assisted in her like moment of despair. And I'm wondering if that might like be important in the way that she's depicting the scene of like her working with another woman to take revenge on a man. Something to think about maybe.
Yes, that sounds very plausible to me. Sorry, I just killed another fly.
You beheaded a fly?
I beheaded a fly.
Okay. I also think it looks like the guy in hers is a little more caught off guard. I don't know. It looks like the person they're beheading, they kind of snuck up on in hers, whereas in Caravaggio's, I don't know. It seems like at that point when the painting was in that moment, it seems like he now knows what's going on. Whatever.
No, Max, you have to realize though that art history is just like saying things mean things and suggesting random opinions. So stop second guessing yourself.
No, I kind of hate it, but that's what I believe. I think that's kind of more interesting because maybe maybe that has to do with like, I'm just saying, like, he's under the covers, like it looks like he was probably right before this moment was like sleeping, and
he's like, let me lay down to get
it just
beheaded.
seems much more illustrative of revenge than in Caravaggio's, which I guess is just like trying more to reflect the biblical story rather than like the personal experiences of the artist as well.
Yeah, totally. Sort of going off that, something that I was also reading about was sort of like how her depiction of this scene changed over time, because she has, if you scroll down, I have sort of two paintings of hers right next to one another. And the one on the left is the first time she painted this, which I think was like 10 years prior. And she clearly has like sort of a radical improvement in technical skill from over time, but also like in the fabrics are different and the proportions of his body are more accurate. Like his head looks too big for his body in her first one. But also she adds this bracelet to Judith's arm that a lot of people have like really deeply analyzed and think that it's cameo scenes of Artemis on this bracelet, which could be a sign of like the artist's identification with this character, which sort of like leads people to make these assumptions that she is depicting something that comes out of her personal experience, and that she is really viewing this as a revenge scene that she can relate to her own like desire for revenge. And that's something that doesn't appear at all in the first one. Is kind of interesting, even though a lot of it stays very similar. She also adds a lot of the spurting blood in her second version. In addition to playing with the fabrics more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Blood.
Woo.
Yeah. And then Artemisia Gentileschi is also kind of interesting because there's a lot of discourse about like whether or not she was a feminist, like whether she was too early to be called a feminist, whether she like actually wanted to depict sort of like women in power, or just sort of rolled off of her trial publicity into like, this is my demographic, this is what they want to see, which is kind of interesting to think about. And also we can think about like, does it matter if at the end of the day, like she was a successful female artist and sort of paved the way for others. Also, this painting, the latter one, was either a commission or a gift for the Medici family, those cool, rich and in charge folk.
Cool
and it was something that they received and then decided they didn't want to pay for because they were too horrified by it. And her good friend Galileo helped her get compensation.
Yeah.
Yay, Galileo.
Yeah.
Scientists coming through. And that's what I have about Gentileschi. I think she's pretty cool.
Very nice. Good work, Sinclair. Max, do you have questions?
No, that was great, Sinclair.
Thank you.
Yeah, good work. I love that painting. I think it's so cool. If someone presented me with that, I would not send it back. But that's just me.
I'll take it, but I don't want to pay for it. I think they also took it and then like hid it for a while because they didn't want to look at it, which, you know.
Was it one of those paintings they had to put a little veil over? Have you seen those?
Put that. No.
Yeah, in some like dirty paintings, or if it was like nudity
Dirty
or whatever.
paintings.
Yeah, like in there.
Is that like when you go to like maybe this is weird. Is that like when you go to the airport and like you go to the magazine section and they like cover the dirty magazines?
Yes. No, it's that. It's that, but it's like in somebody's like salon where they would display all their paintings.
Who's buying like a dirty magazine at an airport? Are you gonna read on the plane?
Here's
like
a good question.
Next to someone, just like next to a stranger? Like that's not okay. So anyway, I think this.
But there are a lot of dirty paintings. Like, do not.
Yeah, but that's
forget
different.
It's
like
real.
I don't.
No, but there's some like racy stuff. Like, it starts with an F. Sinclair, you know, the it's like frilly and like
one of those Rococo ones?
Yes, Rococo. I don't know why I have F, but
Rendezvous.
Yeah, and there's like lots of paintings of these like garden scenes where there's like
I just looked
couples
up for
being
POCOT
like,
sexy
ooh,
or something.
yeah, it's very sexy, and like their shoe will be off or something, or like some clothes are coming
Not the
off, and it's
shoe.
like,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's one with the girl on the swing.
hmm And there's lots of like sexual symbolism in the background and stuff. It gets wild.
Pretty steamy.
Truly, we'll do a Rococo episode. That would be fun.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay, so I will do my thing.
Like, this is cheating. You know too much about this already.
No, you picked one last week that you didn't like already had research on.
That's
and this
fine.
week
Okay.
I felt lazy. And so then I was like, I'm gonna do this painting because I know I have lots of notes on it. But I did rewrite everything. So it's not like I'm just reading from the paper that I wrote.
Okay. Sounds good.
I did work, Sinclair, I promise. Okay, so I chose the Maryland Diptych. It's a Diptych, right? Not Titch. Okay. I chose the Maryland Diptych, which is by Andy Warhol. Partially also because Max and I were talking about like pop art and stuff, and I was like, I have lots of research on pop art, and so I'll just do that. So this is one of many, many versions of the Maryland image that Warhol created. I'll show you in my slides. I have one photo in which there's like so many different versions of this. So he definitely like was studying this image and was trying to like, I don't know, use it for a series or whatever artists do. It is acrylic on canvas, and it's currently in the Tate in London, which Sinclair and I went to together, which was fun.
Yeah, we did. We both
Yeah.
photos at the Tate.
I don't know if we saw it though, which is kind of lame, but anyway. Yeah, and it's from 1962, and Warhol worked in factories, and then, or maybe his family was in factories. I didn't write it in the paper, so I couldn't find that, but that's what I remember. But then he moved into advertising, which is why like so much of it circulates around like consumerism, advertising, capitalism, all that jazz. So the medium is a silkscreen print, which is basically like what they use for t-shirts now. So you just like put the thing in, you put the stencil on, you rub the paint over, you have a painting. And so it's a really like quick and easy method of creating paintings, which is part of why he used it. Warhol had a huge workshop, like many artists, where lots of other artists were actually doing all of the work, but Warhol was taking all of the credit, which is such a fun thing that happens in the art world. He said he liked this method of painting because it enabled him to transfer images onto canvas without revealing the painterly hand. So he's very into this idea that like, this is an image that's been like created of itself kind of, and like, so there's that, but it also like for me is interesting because you're putting so much less effort and personality into it when you're doing it literally with a machine. So it's a lot less personal, and it kind of like totally flips on its head this idea that like paint and art is something that's like used to convey emotion, and it's something that we like have a strong connection to, and it's very like physical. So he's like, nah, fuck that. And he said, I want to be a machine, and I feel that whatever I do and do machine-like is what I want to do. That is a quote from Warhol. He's also like, there's that one fucking, Yogi Bear, the baseball dude. He has many weird quotes that make very little sense. So like Warholisms, I guess. But yeah, and then he also talked about like eliminating paintings as unique objects and introducing commercial photographic silkscreen imagery into a fine art context, and elevating the silkscreen painting to to a high art status. And then I wrote something in French for some reason. Yes, so that is the medium, silk screen printing, which is very fun, and I would like to try it. It looks not hard, and he made a lot of money from it, so yes. But also this technique like allowed him to reproduce images of Marilyn like over 50 times. In the one that I chose, it's like many, many portraits of her on two sides, which is what a diptych is. It's like 2 panels. And I'll talk more about that and what that relates to later. But I think that like this repetition of the image also like kind of makes you feel numb to it. I think maybe he was trying to show us how like, because of the way in media we see the same image so many times and it makes us like indifferent to it almost, and like we no longer care as much about what is actually behind that image, in the same way that like you see so much insane shit on the news, or like so many horrible videos of like Black people being murdered, you know, and then it like over time, because you've seen those images so many times, you become more numb to it. So either he's interrogating that or he's not, but it's a thing that exists. Yeah, and someone else also talked about how like this is a way that like rationalizes a scene which is beyond rationalization, because Marilyn Monroe, I think she overdosed, but intentionally like trying to commit suicide. I didn't do a lot of research on that, I guess, but that's what I understand. Yeah, and then Laura Molesey, who's very cool. I don't know if you've read her yet in college, but I feel like I've read her like 30 times. And I didn't even know who she was when I did this paper, but then I was looking at it and I was like, oh my God, it's Molesey. She's the one that basically created the idea of the male gaze. That's her whole thing. She talked a lot about movies and stuff. But I think that's what she said about this painting, or maybe she just said it in general. I don't remember. Okay, and then talking about the colors, there's a lot of like bright, I think of them as like Easter pastel kind of palette colors towards the like left side, and then slowly it becomes more faded and distorted, which is maybe a way of talking about how like perfection is fleeting and like mortality and, you know, like everything fades and whatever. Also in terms of symbolism, some people talked about how Marilyn basically is equivalent to the entertainment industry at this time, and probably still now. So by manipulating her image, she's also manipulating the image of the entertainment industry as a whole. I like numbered this all crazy. Okay. Yes. Okay. So big ideas. The cult of celebrity. I don't really know what those words mean, but celebrities we worship. Perfection is fleeting. I talked about that. Mortality. Oh, she also died, and then like just weeks later, he started this whole series, which I think is kind of insensitive, especially because he made a fuck ton of money from this series, and his foundation or whatever, his estate, still makes a lot of money from it because they put this image on mugs and t-shirts and everything. So it's like, definitely her image is still being consumed after her death, and Warhol is the one profiting from it. So definitely some sketchy immorality there. Yeah. Oh yeah, the male gaze. Oh, Warhol also liked to interrogate the contemporary American folk hero. He's done lots of paintings of like Elvis and Elizabeth Taylor, and like, I mean, those people also died, and so there's something interesting going on there where he like keeps depicting these dead famous people and making lots of money off of it. And he talked about how he wanted to commemorate the dead, but I would argue that he doesn't really do that, because he really has like I mean, for me, when I see like the Marilyn image, it no longer is like, oh, I'm going to start thinking about Marilyn and how sad it is she died. Like, it's more like, oh, Warhol is like how I associate it in my brain, at least. So I feel like, I don't know, we can talk about that later, but I'm not sure if it's had that effect. Yeah, also this idea that female glamour is achievable, advertisable, but also fleeting. And of course, there's a whole element of she's a woman and he's objectified her by creating a painting of her or an image of her at all. Especially because he also does like, I mean, he worked in advertising and he has the whole Campbell soup cans and the Brillo pads and all of these like literal objects. So then to be like presenting her in the exact same way that he presented these objects is really interesting to me. Because even like the Elvis image that is most famous is like a full body shot, but both Elizabeth Taylor and Marilyn are just like a bust. So I think it's interesting the way that he's displayed those differently too. So I don't know about that. Oh, I also remember, sorry, it's been so long since I've done this. I have so many like random thoughts about it, but in something I read a long time ago, it said that he never intentionally put those two works next to each other to like create the diptych. He or maybe his assistant or something was like selling it to someone, and both of the paintings were next to each other. And they were like, that looks good together. I'll buy it like that. And then it became like the diptych. So it wasn't even like intentional, which is another problem that a lot of people have with Warhol, is that like everything he did, it was kind of like, the intention was more to make money and get fame than it was to like ask any questions, I think. And so like, when you look at it, it's like, what was he really trying to do here? And like, what did he successfully do? Yeah, also here and in pop art in general, you have like a shift to just a subject. So here, Marilyn, rather than a whole narrative. So like I was saying, like you see this one picture of a person, you're not getting the story of her life, you're not getting any of her actual imperfections, like you're seeing her in this kind of mask-like pose where you're just getting this image. And it's very like flat, and that's all it is. So that's most of that. I have some references that I wanted to talk about, but I'll do that with the images. So let me share. But if you guys have questions, you can ask while I share.
I think it's interesting that like with the colors especially, and like the super high contrast and like dark shadows on some of these ones,
Mm-hmm.
On the left side, like he's kind of taken this like beauty icon, like the American beauty standard, and made her like not beautiful and made her kind of like dead looking.
Yeah.
And I think that's like interesting in terms of objectifying her, but also like potentially like critiquing beauty standards, but also maybe not. But is like, I don't know, like if I were thinking about depicting like the beauty icon of the moment, I don't know that this is how I would have depicted her.
Yeah, totally. Which
like
is
what I was trying to accentuate, you know?
Yeah, and that's also why I don't think his intention was to like commemorate her, because that's not the way she looks, it's very cartoonish and like garish, and it doesn't feel like, look how beautiful she was. Like that's not what this conjures for me, I guess. Max, do you have any thoughts about this one?
I just think it's really interesting because like I feel like every time there's like a showing of Warhol, or like you think about Warhol, you kind of like, you tend to look for the nuance, and you tend to like, think of it like as like, it's put in a gallery, like it's like in a gallery, yet it's also like this kind of like mass production thing. Like you think of it as this critique, but the fact that like you're saying there was really like not that much intention behind it, like makes me just like feel like I don't really care about this work as much anymore, because like I want to look at this piece and be like, oh, look at the subtle differences between the two. Like, look at this row on the right side where her face is almost like blocked out. It's almost like kind of like this rise and fall of like the celebrity. And that's what I want to say. Like, that's what I want to say, how it's like talking about pop culture and like everything that comes with it. But I'm inclined to now be like, well, I don't even think, like, if there's not that much intention behind it, then I kind of like I just don't really care as much. I don't know.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it definitely like makes you more cynical about the whole thing. But I do think, like, I guess part of the perspective I took when I wrote the paper about it too is that like you can also view it as like a whole meta thing because of how his work still exists as like literally things that people consume and buy all the time in museum gift shops. So I think like it's kind of like a weird cyclical consumerism, capitalism. Yeah.
It's weird because I feel like if you're creating this art, like that's just what I assume, because I think it's like the simplest possible explanation is like, oh, like, yeah, you're gonna make this like kind of critique of consumerism and also like kind of like tongue-in-cheek like sell some merch, you know. But if like it's I feel kind of stupid knowing now that like that's he's like, oh yeah, I just want to make money. But I feel like, how could you not see that like this is like what you're doing is like such an ironic endeavor?
I think he did though. Like, I think that's what a lot of the quotes show is he's like, I'm just in it for the money and the fame. Like, he said that multiple times. Like, he doesn't claim to be anything else, which is also why it's interesting when he does works like this, which if you choose to analyze it, has a lot of symbolism in it. And I like to think maybe he like put some thought into it, or maybe was like, I mean, I don't know. Sometimes when I'm painting something, I'm like, oh, maybe this represents this bullshit. And so I'm like, maybe that's the way he thought about it. Like, I'll just like black this out and see what people think about it, you know? I don't know.
Yeah. We could also think about like what makes art like philosophically valued, or like why do we look at art? Is it to like think about what the artist intended, or is it like still effective if it makes us think about those things, even if that's not what he was thinking about? And also like, why is this still so popular? And is it because of like curators and different people who bought it and thought it was important, or just thought it looked cool, or like we can think about sort of not just him, but like everyone else who has interacted with this and thought it was interesting and like saw meaning in it as like a greater sort of human experience of like this piece of visual culture. And like, it doesn't necessarily have to be like just him that gives it meaning.
Yeah, same way with what you were talking about with the intentions of Gentileschi, and like whether she's a feminist and that whole thing. It's like, it's an interesting conversation, but does it matter at the end of the day? I don't know. But yeah. Okay, let me go into the next one. So this was just to show you like how many different versions of this there are. Probably most of them weren't even done by his own hands. I would doubt it, but this is like, I think the Diptych is the most famous one, or maybe this one also with the 4. But yeah, I mean, there was even that like photo booth filter that was like that for a long time on like old Macs and stuff. So yeah, and then this is an illuminated manuscript. I don't know if you know what it is, Max, but basically it's just like,
I've seen this in a theater, something like this in a theater class. It's like a medieval manuscript, I guess.
Cool books with pictures.
Yeah.
And lots and lots of care and time.
I remember in my theater class they showed us something in the style, but it was like a medieval like rewriting of of a Bible with like
Mhm.
different with altered stories.
Yeah, that's basically what these were. There are lots of like often religious texts of like lots of different religions. Like there's I think Hindu ones too that I've seen, and many others. There's we studied a Jewish one too that was some
that had the illuminations in it, I think.
Yeah. And so they're often religious. Lots of monks would make them, or like whatever that religion's version of a monk is, which is part of why there's so many details and stuff. They'd spend lots of time on it. It was very meditative. And I think the reason it's called illuminated is because, well, it's like paint plus image is like light, I guess.
I'm sorry, is this a separate topic, or are we?
This is related, I promise.
Okay.
No, I do have a way to tie this in.
I have something to add. I actually know something.
Okay, tell me in a second.
These were
what?
No,
Go ahead.
Okay, these
you
were
already
like
started.
Yeah, sorry. These were prized possessions. These were like families' prized possessions. They cost a lot because like there were whole businesses that were just for making these, because each one is unique, you know.
Yeah.
And they take like forever, and you have to sit there and do them.
Like these are pre-printing press.
Yes.
You know.
And not everybody could read.
Right.
So there's that. But yeah, and I think part of the other reason that it's called illuminated specifically is because they often would use like gold foil in it. I'm not sure if that's true, don't quote me, but I'm guessing that that's part of it.
Like gold and silver in the paint.
Yeah, which like gives us this brightness too. And I think I didn't even include it, which is great of me, but the one that I was gonna compare it to, I think this is the like AP art history one that they do. But it's this painting. So if you look at this, you see all the gold, and there's a lot of conversation about this piece and how the choice of gold as a background was probably to refer back to illuminated manuscripts and the way that like connecting the cult of celebrity to religion.
It's like an icon, like a Byzantine one.
So that's what that's about. This is an image of screen printing. And this is, let me go back to percent. This is a Rauschenberg piece, which is one of my favorites, and I really want to do Rauschenberg at some point because I love him. But he does a lot of collage and stuff, and he's also considered a pop art artist, so I wanted to include him. And I thought the JFK one specifically was good because it's also dealing with like a dead
because they were
icon
bays.
in a way. Yes. Oh yeah, also true. I totally didn't even think about that, but yes, more of a connection. And he dealt with a lot of like there's Coca-Cola here and an eagle, so lots of like pop imagery. So another day we can go into that more. Here's the Elvis. So as you can see, like you have a similar color thing, but he's like full body, also in like an active pose, so it's a lot more masculine. And then this is the Elizabeth Taylor, and her lips are like even more like clownish kind of, and creepy, I think. And then this is a super cool piece that we should also do at some point, because there's a lot to talk about with this. But it's the Merode Altarpiece, which is a triptych because it has 3 panels. So I wanted to show you an example of that. And then you have his like lots of objects, and he displays that similarly to the people. And this is my bibliography, so we don't get sued. So that's all.
If we do the Merode Altarpiece, I want to talk about it because I wrote one of my long boys for class on it, and it's
okay. Lit, then you do it.
Maybe I will.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the art.
Look at us go, talking about art.
Any other thoughts, Max?
Thanks everyone for listening.
Yeah.
I thought I did great.
You did great, Max.
So maybe I'll bring a painting next time.
Whatever you want.
Yeah.
You can bring a painting and we'll talk about it.
You could also do that.
Yeah.
Give us more work.
We could do a segment where I bring a painting and you have to figure out like what the context is.
Oh, that's fun. Sometimes I'm good at that, and sometimes I'm not.
Yeah, it can be really hard.
You can make a story about the painting. You know, you can.
I feel like that's something you'd be better at, though, because you don't know as much real art history. So you could present a painting and then just bullshit your way through it, and that could be fun.
I could present 2 paintings, and you can try to figure out which one is bullshit context and which one's real.
Okay. I'm open to this. I like it.
And they'll both be equally absurd, so you won't know.
Okay, great. 2 truths in a painting.
Max, paint us a painting and then analyze it, please.
Okay. Well, I could, I could bring out a painting right now. I have a painting.
Go.
I have a painting I did in my, here's a painting I did last year.
I literally asked you the other day, and you were like, "I don't paint."
I've done a couple. Here's a painting I did last year.
Wow.
I like it.
Yeah. You guys want to guess what it is? You want to guess the symbolism?
I mean, I'm seeing fire.
Okay, so for the audience, we have. Well, I can't describe it actually, because I'll describe it after.
Okay. There's a hand fire thing, it looks like, as well. Providing some nice color contrast.
Little blue bird.
It's the bluebird you, and then the fire's holding you, and it's like darkness or some shit. That's my guess. Do you have a different guess, Sinclair?
Okay. So,
I think there's an out of frame dragon breathing.
Holy shit.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so for the audience, we have a painting with a yellow background, and there's a bird with no beak and really long legs, and his legs coming out of the fire, and then there's like a hand of fire that's like slapping him around.
I didn't know it was slapping.
And so basically, like, it's climate change. It's
shit.
climate change, guys.
Okay.
Because so
why doesn't he have a beak?
Well, because he's being slapped around, like his beak's burned off.
Oh, he lost it.
His beak is burned off.
Got it.
And but like he's made effort, like he's trying to keep living. Like the reason his legs are so long is because the ground's burning, and he's trying to get off the ground. That's why they like mutated, so they're bigger now.
Oh, cool.
So like it should help him, but he's still being slapped around.
Wow.
And the hand is man. The hand is man. In my mind, it kind of looks like a cartoon bird, like how in like Hanna-Barbera cartoons, like beaks can fall off and shit. So that's my rationale for that. And
is the beak somewhere else in the painting?
No, the beak's burned. The beak's long gone. You're never getting the beak back.
Got it. I wanted like a fiery beak in the flames or some shit.
And why is it yellow in the background? Well, it's golden hour.
That's the reason. I thought you were just gonna say like fire or like the earth is polluted.
So like some of these meanings I did think of when I was painting it, and then some I made up after the fact. But I think it works as a cohesive piece.
Oh yeah, no, I like it. It looks like a professional thing that like a Like
No,
if you marketed this as like a climate
no,
change series with lots of
no.
birds
Well,
without beaks, you
I
could do
I
it.
could commission some people. I like my idea.
Start a workshop.
Yeah, the fiery hand of man. Bruh.
It's a play on like the atom,
Yeah.
whatever. Nice.
Yeah. That's what I brought today.
No, it was great. I appreciate what you brought. Well, thank you for listening. If I ever get this edited and people end up listening to it. I do know I talked to my mom and her friend briefly, and she was like, send it to me. So there's definitely going to be lots of Sherry's friends listening in the beginning.
That's the target demographic.
We should shit talk. We should have a segment where they send in a painting they did, and then we shit talk it. We like,
I mean, eventually we could do like some listeners' paintings or something. That would be fun.
And we could.
Let's just critique other people's work.
Or they can send in a critique of art, and we're like, your critique sucks.
Ooh, let's critique. There are many options, guys. We got.
They could send in. They could send in a painting, and we rip it apart, literally.
Wow.
Yeah.
From like different locations across the country.
They could send us a painting, and then we try to tell them like how to. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Then I think we'll be done for this week, and we should try to do it again.